We are all afraid. Okay. That's quite a statement. And I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice because retaliation is real. And that's not right.
All right, folks, brace yourselves. A prominent Republican senator grabbed a microphone, went on stage, and told the truth about Donald Trump and the Republican Party's twisted, chilling dynamic with him. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski admitted on stage that she and her party are terrified of Donald Trump and fear retaliation from him against them if they defy him. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, folks, we got a lot to unpack, but let's start with this clip. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski admitting explicitly what we have long suspected and truly known for years.
Part of what I have been doing with my team is just trying to listen as carefully as I can to what is happening and how it is happening and the impacts it is having on the ground. And we're honest up front in saying we don't have all the answers, but we're trying to unlock at different opportunities and in different ways as much as we can. And it is as hard as anything that I have been engaged in the 20 plus years I've been in the Senate.
What do you have to say to people who are afraid or who represent people who are afraid?
We are all afraid. Okay. That's quite a statement. But we are, we're in a time and a place where I don't know, I certainly have not been here before. And I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice because retaliation is real, and that's not right. But that's what you've asked me to do, and so I'm going to use my voice to the best of my ability, and sometimes it will be viewed in a way that, well, that's pretty confrontational. And other times it's going to be using my mother's charm that I learned as a young girl and in direct communication with those that I've made relationships with and am able to affect some change that way. But I've got to figure out how I can do my best to help the many who are so anxious and are so afraid.
So you can see and hear the emotion on her face and in her voice. I mean, when she said, "We are all afraid. We are very afraid," she seemed like she was about to break down. Now, Lisa Murkowski is pretty moderate as far as Republicans are concerned, to the extent that there are any Republican moderates left, okay, alongside Susan Collins of Maine. Now, it'd still be better if both Maine and Alaska were represented by Democrats in totality. The very best Republican lawmaker is simply no substitute for a Democratic lawmaker, even though Democratic lawmakers have their issues, because Murkowski and Collins are in the position of they are elected by relatively moderate constituencies, but also in order to remain in power in the Republican Party, you can't be too moderate, you can't be too critical of Trump, and that's a tightrope they have to walk. That's why I think we should just defeat them and replace them with Democrats. But there you have it, an explicit admission that she is afraid, and she is one of the most powerful people in this country. When you are a member of the United States Senate, when you are an elected representative, certainly at the federal level, you are very powerful. You wield state power on behalf of your constituencies. And the sad thing is, Murkowski is part of the branch which is supposed to be predominant. Let's be very clear. Again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's important civics, almost said physics. Is the president of the United States the most powerful person in the country? Yes, by far. But the executive is not supposed to be the most powerful branch. Congress, Murkowski's own branch, is supposed to be the final hand on top. They can override presidential vetoes. They can impeach and remove the president. They're the final hand on top, and the founders set it up that way. They wanted Congress collectively to be more powerful than any president. But Murkowski and her party have abdicated that power. They've abdicated it because they are afraid of Trump. She confirms with visible emotion what we have long suspected, long knew to be true. And it's blown up on social media. You look up Murkowski on Twitter, everybody's talking about this because this is a stunning indictment of the Republican Party under Donald Trump. It has become an authoritarian cult of personality, which has terrified its own representatives. Now, that does not absolve them from agency. To the extent that anyone has any sympathies for a Mitt Romney, a Lisa Murkowski, a Susan Collins, these moderates who are indeed under threat, and you should probably have some sort of sympathy. You signed up for this job, and you had a responsibility to check Trump in the first place. Murkowski, Collins, and Romney's no longer in the Senate. He left. But these people helped aid and abet Trump. They helped aid and legitimize him. No, Trump's moral inferiority over any Democrat was apparent at the very beginning. Lisa Murkowski, if you're watching, please like and subscribe. But there is not one Democrat in this country that Donald Trump is better than. He's worse than every Democrat in this country. You knew that. You should have stood in stark opposition to this man from day one on everything. Do they deserve what's coming to them? No, of course not. Do they deserve what they're being threatened to? No, of course not. But this is why, quite frankly, Murkowski should use the time she has left in office, so should Collins, and Mitch McConnell, who's on his way out the door, even though he, second only to Trump, has done more damage to the United States government than any Republican. They should caucus and coalition build with the Democrats. Use your power to check. It's not too late. Liz Cheney is somebody that, I know a lot of people lionize her. I don't lionize her, but I think she did the right thing by eventually using the power she had. And Congress people only get 2-year terms. Senators get 6-year terms. Liz Cheney recognized eventually how I screwed up. I backed the wrong guy. And she recognized that every Democrat, every Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, they were all objectively better, smarter, morally superior to Donald Trump. And she put her money where her mouth was. And she used what power she had for the time that she had it. And then even after she lost re-election to, I think it was Harriet Hageman. I'm blank. I think that was that lady's psychotic. And started to leverage the power she had. She joined the January 6th Collective Committee. For however long I remain in Congress, I will make it my mission to crush Trumpism in Congress. That's what she did. That's what Murkowski could do. That's what Collins could do. It's what Mitch McConnell could do. They're choosing not to do it. You should be saying yes to every Democrat, and you should be saying no to everything Trump wants to do. Your fear is no excuse for inaction. And I should say, Murkowski has, at certain points, opposed Trump. I don't want to pretend that that's never happened. Doesn't happen enough. Rolling Stone is, wrote a pretty good article about this as well. Murkowski voted to convict Trump in his 2021 impeachment trial when he was charged with inciting the January insurrection at the Capitol. She is the only Republican who voted to defund Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency. She was also one of 3 Republican senators to vote against Pete Hegseth's confirmation and one of 2 to vote against Kash Patel's confirmation. Trump has called Murkowski lousy, and worse than a Democrat at a 2022 rally in Alaska and supported her opponent in her Senate election that year. Quote, "She is the worst. I rate her number 1 bad, and we have a couple of bad ones, but she's by far the worst," Trump said. Murkowski said Monday that protesters should continue challenging Trump. Quote, "Keep calling, keep the emails, keep the social media going," she said. Quote, "It's important that the concerns continue to be raised rather than allow the fatigue of the chaos grind you down. Don't let it grind you down." Again, very good advice. But what Murkowski should be asking herself, and she should be pressuring other quote-unquote moderate Republicans, like, again, Susan Collins, to use their power responsibly. Donald Trump is a creation of the Republicans. The only reason Donald Trump right now is president is because a sufficient number of Republican lawmakers, not Murkowski, she voted against it, did not whip the votes to convict Donald Trump of impeachment when he incited an insurrection at the Capitol. You have even Mitch McConnell, who said at the time, Donald Trump was responsible for January 6th. His argument was, well, I can't vote to impeach Donald Trump or convict him of impeachment because Trump is no longer in office, because the impeachment trial in the Senate happened after President Biden was sworn in, and we can't impeach former presidents. But McConnell was the one who, because he was initially the Senate leader, when Trump was impeached the second time, McConnell was still in charge of the Senate. He was about to lose that control because Democratic lawmakers in Georgia were about to be seated and the majority was going to be flipped to the Democrats. McConnell could have scheduled a Senate trial while Trump was in office, if that was really your concern. Well, we can't impeach former officers. Okay, well, then have the trial now. McConnell chose not to do that because he didn't want to impeach Trump. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He hated Trump. He recognized Trump was responsible for January 6th, but he thought that the constituency would do it and that he wouldn't have to actually put his money where his mouth is. That he could say, oh, I didn't vote to convict Trump. And as a consequence of Republican fecklessness, Donald Trump is back in power. So, yeah, again, I don't think it's good that politicians fear the sort of retaliation that they obviously fear from Donald Trump, not just political, but Jesus, he's disappearing people to El Salvador. Who's to say that Donald Trump doesn't one day say, I think Lisa Murkowski is an MS-13 member, send her to El Salvador. And then when the courts and everybody else go, no, she's number one, American citizen, number two, a United States senator, number three, you have no evidence that she's an MS-13 member. She's already there. I can't do anything about it. What's to stop that from happening? People need to be thinking about that. But yeah, stunning admission. We've long known that this is the case, and here you have a Republican lawmaker visibly upset, telling the truth on stage into a microphone. They are afraid of Donald Trump, and that's why the Republican cult is what it is. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.